Kipp, what's going on, man? A little different than previous episodes where we're starting to do some more video again.
I know.
You need to upgrade your backdrop though.
And I need to grow
And
a
your
beard,
beard.
apparently too. And I need to get my hair cut. This
Did you
is
see that
there's a lot of pressure to this whole video thing.
Did you see that you might even be in your underwear. I really don't know. Did you
Maybe.
see that I cut my beard?
Yeah. I saw the original post. You're like, look what happened at jiu-jitsu today. I thought, oh, that is horrible. Look how much that is. Like it looked like so much. I was like, that's horrible.
This
And then
morning
you're
when
like,
I
just
looked at
joking.
that
I was like,
post,
okay.
yeah, no, I looked at that post this morning. I'm like, actually, those kind of look like pubes. Like, I wonder if somebody's going to think that's not my beard. And it's like, that's what got ripped out. Somebody said, you need to wear a cup, bro. I'm like, yeah.
That's funny.
Yeah. Anyways, yeah, you do need to upgrade your beard, your haircut, your wall, all of the
And my
above.
wall. Yeah. Dude, the office. So we're remodeling our office. We just moved into this building and dude, it's gonna be so nice when it's done. I'm looking forward to it.
Right on, man.
So, but anyhow, you were saying, because if you don't mind bringing it up, you were saying that you caught someone in that clock choke.
Is that what did you call it?
What's a form of a clock choke where
Clock
you're using?
choke. Okay.
Yeah, where you're kind of using it's not their traditional clock choke. So anybody that does jiu-jitsu, it's not what you think, right? We're talking about side control, passing the lapel to the arm that's cross-facing and then twisting, right?
Yeah.
But did you get it under his chin, or were you like smashing his face when you were doing it?
No, I got it in his neck. I got it in there really well. Yeah.
Yeah.
And I had told you before we hit record, I almost felt a little bad doing it because I was holding him, the crossface, and I had his collar underneath his neck. Yeah. And I'm sitting there trying to hide it, and I'm pulling my gi out, right, of my belt. I'm like getting it ready, and I'm like, dude, this feels wrong on so many levels.
Trickery.
Like setting this dude up. And I put my head down so he couldn't see it, and just reached it up there and grabbed it with that other arm. And as soon as I grabbed it, I'm like, oh man, he's in for a world of hurt. And then just cranked it, straightened that arm out, put my head down, and it was a quick tap.
Yeah.
But it felt good to know, I'm like, yeah, it worked. So I was rolling with him and another guy, and they're like, what was that?
You're like, I don't know.
I can't tell you guys. I don't know. It's just something I threw together. This old trick.
Well, and so as you go for that more often, what will happen sometimes is you'll pass that lapel into your hand, and then you'll rotate, but the guy will drop his chin.
Yeah, and get on.
And then that gi will go across his chin. But as you're a vice grip tightening, you can't see him, right? Like because
so you don't know
your angle, you don't know if it's like crushing their face or not, right? And so there's been a couple of times I do that, and as I turn around, I look, and the guy's face is just being vice gripped by fabric.
So mean, man. It's so mean, and I love every minute of it. Because you know what? I think sometimes when I'm thinking I'm being mean, I'm like, you know what? If the role was reversed, he would do the same thing to me.
Exactly.
So, I had this guy I was rolling with it must have been the end of last week. And he had me in, he almost had me in a triangle. And I had my hand down, and I had my fist, and it was like right in his throat. And I'm like, oh, this feels wrong, dude. This doesn't feel right. And I'm like, no, dude, he's got his legs wrapped around my neck, and he's pulling on the back of my head. No, I'm going to put my fist in his neck.
Yeah.
And, he was able to still finish it, but I felt less bad knowing he was trying to kill me as much as I was trying to kill him.
Yeah, that's funny. I was training with Court McGee. He was on the podcast. You remember Court?
Yeah, for sure.
And he came into the gym last week, and him and Ramsey, Ninjam, and a couple of those guys, both those guys UFC fighters at one point, and they just beat the crap out of me. It was
is that post you had made in the Facebook group the other day?
Yeah. No, and I wasn't like it was that bad. Like it was just constant, just destruction. And I felt hopeless. Every fiber of my body's like, why am I doing this? Like, you know what I mean? It was just a really, really rough train, and no one was giving me anything. Like there was no kindness given.
It's so good for you. That's why I did the podcast that I released just yesterday was with Dedeco.
Yeah.
And man, it was a great, great conversation. I've got a lot of good feedback on that one already, but more men need to do jujitsu.
Yeah. There's something about that grind, man, that whole mental mentality of survival and just, I don't know. It's great. And Dedeko's such a nice guy. He is
He's so
nice.
genuine, so sincere, but then he can kill you without you knowing what's happening to you. So
Totally.
yeah. Well, let's get into it. I think we're, our traditional 5 minutes into it before we get started. If you're listening to this, or I guess watching it too, because we're very active on YouTube. The YouTube channel's been doing very, very well. I think we've had like 1,000 or maybe even more subscribers over the past week or two. So keep checking it out. We've got this video on YouTube, youtube.com/orderofman. But what we're doing here, guys, if you're new for the first time, is we're fielding your questions from our exclusive brotherhood, the Iron Council, and also from Facebook. I think today's questions are exclusively from our Facebook group, which is at facebook.com/groups/orderofman. And that is the best way to submit questions. I have guys that'll email me occasionally or shoot me a message on Instagram. I'm like, dude, like I got to have it all housed in one place. I can't be fumbling through there. So just go to the Facebook group. You'll be able to submit your questions there. That's
no circumventing the system.
That's right, man. No sneaking around. Like do it right, or your question's not getting answered.
Yeah. Hook me up, bro. But I got a question for you.
Yeah, exactly.
I should take money like on the side for getting questions on.
I don't think people care about our opinions that bad, but maybe give it a try. See how it works out.
Sure. And by the way, I'd like to point out that I think that the YouTube subscription is increasing because of this, and not because of the Jocko interview.
No, it's because of you. It's because people want to see you.
By the way, so if you guys are listening, if you guys have not seen the what are we calling it? Like the promo video for the main event that Will did. Dude, that video was so awesome.
It turned out so good. I feel really bad about you and Joshua not being in the video. And I know, no, you're right. I even messaged Joshua and I'm like, dude, I don't know what to say. Like I am a dick. I'm sorry. I will correct this. Anyways, Joshua Laycock, yourself were instrumental and very, very critical in making sure that was a great event. And I feel like an a-hole for leaving you guys out of it.
Yeah. I'm sure he realizes it's an honest mistake, not a big deal. But regardless, that video is so awesome. Like I've watched that video so many times. I don't know why. I just want to keep watching it. I'm like,
see me again, probably.
Yeah, to look at your face and your beard.
That's right. Yeah, to look at my face. I don't know when the last person who ever saw my face. I mean, that's been a while. It's been at least.
They just focus on the beard. You're like, my face is up here. Yeah. But like when you're talking to people,
your eyes
you're
up
like,
here.
Eyes up here, guys, not here.
All right, let's get into the questions, man. I'm on a time crunch. In fact, I'll throw this out as a teaser. A little bit of a time crunch today because I've got an interview with the one and only Ryan Holiday.
Nice.
To talk about his upcoming book October 1st called Stillness is the Key. So I've got an interview with him this afternoon that I've got to make sure that I'm ready for, and right after this conversation. So let's get to it.
Warm up script for you right here.
Man. That's right.
All right. Wayne Squire, how are some step-by-steps to rewire your brain to think positive instead of negative?
Well, I think one of the best things you can do is be around positive people.
Yeah.
That's naturally gonna rub off. I'm not gonna call it osmosis, but the way that other people are behaving and acting and communicating and sharing themselves is naturally going to rub off on you, and you're gonna start to pick up some of their mannerisms and their mindsets and their beliefs and patterns, et cetera, et cetera. I think that's one way. Another way is to be very conscious about what you're doing and what you're thinking and how you're behaving and how you're responding to different situations and encounters. And that requires a level of margin that most men don't have in their lives. Most men are just, they're stacked with task to task, to activity to conversation to project, and they have no space to think about what they're going to say or how they're behaving or how they're showing up and how they're responding to different scenarios. And because they don't have that margin in their life, they end up going this default path, which in this case, it might be a negative path. So create some margin in your life, surround yourself with positive people, and then at the risk of beating a dead horse, the after action review. This is why we do this. This is why we evaluate the way that we're showing up. And it's not just about the performance. The performance is important, but it's the way that you went about it. So if I'm doing an after action review, for example, for this podcast, I'm going to talk about the way that we did the intro, to the way that we answered the questions, and our level of preparedness, and the audio quality, and your lack of a good looking backdrop in your studio there. Like, I'm going to look at that stuff, and then I'm going to think about how the softer side of it, the intangibles, the things that you didn't see, and what was my mentality going into it, and did I take time to prepare, and what was I upset about something else, or was I high on something else that got me excited? You know what I'm saying? So
what do you mean high on something else?
I mean, like, excited about that did come across. It
did sound a little like Rogan on you.
Yeah,
I was
it's not Rogan-esque. What I mean is,
clarify.
Like, I had what I meant to say, let me clarify here, is that I had a win from earlier in the day, and I'm still stoked and excited about that. And so that carried over into the way I'm having a conversation now.
Copy.
Did I dig myself out of the hole, or deeper into the hole?
No, you're solid now.
All right, cool. Anyways, it's the softer side, the things that are intangible that you can't really see and not even quantify in a lot of ways, but go back and review those things as well. And between those three strategies, I really think you're going to start teeing yourself up for being a more positive person.
Yeah. One tactic that I like that's related to this is in those moments of margin, evaluating how you're going to show up in that next segment of the day or whatever. Guaranteed, if I pull into my driveway and I take 3 minutes and I think, okay, before I walk in this house, how can I show up? What kind of dad am I? What kind of dad do I want to be? How should I interact with my kids when I walk in the room?
It's high now, man.
Yeah, I know. I'm like, I live with my parents still. How should I interact with my wife? Like, just intentionality, right? And I think we can plan the intentionality throughout our days. And a lot of it has to do with what you're saying, right? Is that margin, is we have to give ourselves those margins to be able to sit and contemplate a little bit before we progress on.
Yeah. And not to beat a dead horse, but again, with this book, because I've been reading it, is he actually talks a lot about obviously stillness, but creating the margin, learning to say no, clearing your mind, and really getting at peace with yourself by not stacking up your day with so many activities and projects. And I see that with fathers a lot with their kids. Not only do they do it to themselves as men, but they do it to their kids as well. So it's, okay, Monday night, we've got to go here. And then when you're done with this, then we got to go to piano lessons. And then when you're done with piano lessons, you have to do all your homework. Then when you're done with your homework, we got to do this. And they do that every single day. It's not good for kids. One of the rules that we have is that our children can pick one activity per season. So if it's jujitsu, great. That's the activity that you choose. If it's baseball or football or soccer or gymnastics, whatever you pick, it doesn't really matter to us. You got to pick something. That's a rule. And you can only have one per season. And that helps us maintain some sanity within the dynamic of the family and the health of our children as well.
Yeah, totally. All right. Ryan Henry. Thoughts on collecting unemployment after separating from the military while finding the right career path?
Yeah, I mean, I saw this one. That's why it's there, right? It is there, but I'm torn on this because if you're fully capable of not needing these benefits, then it's better not to collect the benefits. It's better. It's just better. It's better for your psyche. It's better for your well-being. You wouldn't ask this question if there wasn't some level of guilt in accepting benefits for you transitioning. Now, I know there's a lot of guys out there who are going to say, well, that's why it's there and you should be able to use it. I agree. That's why it's there. And is it moral? Is it legal? Is it ethical? Yeah, maybe you could make the case that it is, but even the morality side, like if you're fully capable of going out and finding work, then why should you mooch off the system? I don't think that you should. Better than that, I would say, is to be prepared. You know you're going to transition out of the military. Are you setting money aside? Are you saving money? Are you living within your means? Are you working to build up your resume? Are you securing job opportunities and interviews now? Are you building out your network? Are you starting a business or building a social media channel so that you can start your business? What are you doing now that will put you in the position to be better off when you do transition out of the military? I actually talk a little bit about this in Sovereignty as well, is that you're always going to put yourself in an inferior position when you're relying upon somebody else to provide for you in some capacity, in this case, financially. You collecting unemployment benefits is going to be far inferior to you going out and having a job and providing your own way and paving your own path. Obviously, financially, that's the case, but emotionally as well. I mean, how many men do we talk with, for example, who are injured or disabled or have some sort of medical condition, and they feel like complete shit because they're not contributing financially to the household? That is a financial problem, yes, but it's also a mental and an emotional issue that these men deal with. So why would you voluntarily put yourself in that situation? Now, if things go wrong and things go south and it's unexpected, having that in place is good, but you can't tell me you don't know you're going to transition out of the military. You can't tell me as a man that there isn't a risk at some point of you becoming disabled or injured or hurt and unable to work or losing a job. That's your job to anticipate what could potentially go wrong and then create the contingencies and plans in place so that when and if that day happens, you aren't having to rely upon the government or a handout or even a little bit of money from your parents or friends or whoever it may be. Like, that's your job as a sovereign man to take care of yourself. If you need it, it's there. Use it temporarily for what it's for. Outside of that, make yourself so capable and responsible and, again, sovereign that is a non-issue.
Do you think it's a slippery slope to collect the unemployment where you might be putting yourself in a position where it affects you in a negative way mentally versus embracing the suck a little bit, right? And the pressure and pressing forward instead?
Yeah, I mean, I definitely think it makes you more complacent, right? If you've got, I don't even know what employment benefits would look like, but let's say you have, I don't know, $500, $1,000, who knows, whatever it is. If you have that sort of money coming into your household, okay, well, you're set. You can make the mortgage or you can pay for the groceries. And I'm not going to say that that's going to provide for your way of life, but certainly it makes you more complacent, more mediocre.
Naturally.
Naturally. Yeah. By design. That it's designed to make you feel more comfortable. Yeah. So we do our best work as men when our backs are against the wall because there's no alternative. You fight or you die. And that's actually why I like leading my own business. That's why I've always gravitated towards commission positions, because I want to eat what I kill. I don't want to earn. At the time I was working right out of high school, I think minimum wage for me was $5.25. Or maybe
Jeez, how old are you?
Yeah, I'm like 53. 38, not that old. But $5.25. Yeah, I think I'll sell some things and I think I can make more than $5 an hour.
Yeah.
So I've always gravitated towards, no, I don't want your minimum wage. I want to know what the maximum potential is. That's what I'm worried about. And I remember going into retail and doing very, very well. And I would ask one time our store manager, I said, you're cutting my hours back. Like, I don't understand why. He's like, well, it's expensive to have you here. Imagine that.
Yeah.
I'm like, it's not expensive. I sell. Yeah, it might be more expensive than having John Schmo over here doing the thing, but yeah, I bring in 4 to 5 to 6 times the revenue. And he was worried about how much he was paying me on commission. It was ridiculous. Yeah. Like there is when you're working for an employer, and we had this conversation last week a little bit, and I'm not going to knock anybody who works for an employer. I don't think that's bad necessarily, but inherently built into the program is a conflict of interest.
Yeah.
Inherently built into it. There's not a damn thing that you can do about it. Now, your goals are aligned in a lot of ways, in that the more productive that an employee is, the greater the company does, et cetera, et cetera. But an employer is always going to try to pay you less.
Yeah,
you're always going to try to make more. And I'm not saying these employers are underhanded or shady. I'm not saying any of that. I'm just saying inherently built into the employer-employee relationship is a conflict of interest. And I'm not interested in that. So I choose to take it upon my own hands.
It's an interesting approach or a way of seeing that. I've never thought of it that way, but you're totally accurate. I mean, everyone's trying to, not everyone, but a lot of people are trying to get as much as they can get.
Everyone.
By default.
Everyone. And again, it's like I said, I'm not saying it's immoral. If you're an employer, I'm not saying by the nature of you trying to pay your employees less that you're immoral. I'm not saying that. It's an agreement. This is why I'm not a huge fan of minimum wage laws. There's a lot of reasons. One of the reasons is that it prices out entry-level positions for people wanting to get into the workforce. We won't necessarily talk about that. We can address that later. But it just encourages and promotes this level of mediocrity and barely getting by and, just punching the time clock. And as soon as I'm out, I'm out. Like, there's a whole lot of reasons why I just don't think it's good for people. It's not good for men. I want to know upside potential, not minimum downside potential.
Yeah. Yeah. I like that. That's one of the benefits of consulting is I tell guys when we're looking to hire new candidates that it's a bittersweet perspective, because in the world of consulting, you're not a cog in a corporate wheel where you have some perceived value, but we're all not quite sure really if you provide value or not. As a consultant, we know. Mm-hmm. I know who brings in the best margins. I know if you're bleeding us out or if you're providing value. It is 100% apparent, and we all know.
Yep.
And that's amazing because it has a sense of great gratitude because you know that you're valuable. But for some people, they can't deal with it, right? They want to have this perception of, well, I'm valuable just because of me, and you're like, actually, no, you just being
how this works.
Right. Yeah, like, I'm sorry, like, you're a good person, but you're bleeding the company. Like, not only are you not valuable, you're destructive.
Yes. You're a cost.
Yeah. And it's just so upfront and personal in the world of consulting that it some people don't like that. But
it's funny because this is the society that we live in, that everybody's special, everybody's magical. We all have tremendous worth and value. And I think we do have potential worth. I think we have unlimited potential value and worth. Whether or not you decide to tap into it is an entirely different question.
Yeah. Exactly.
So I think, Kipp, by the nature of you being a human being, I believe that you have worth. But to an organization, you have to prove that to me. And you have to show and illustrate that is actually the case. Warm and fuzzies and feel goods don't get the bills paid, and they don't grow the business, and they don't deliver the services and the products to the people that you've promised to deliver them to.
Yeah, it's so crazy. All right, Craig.
It is crazy. It's insane. You're absolutely right. It is insane, but we have to make sure everybody feels good and nobody gets their little feel bads hurt.
Yeah.
And it starts early, man. Early. Yeah. To indoctrinate these people so that they just do what they're supposed to do, right? Toe the line, make your minimum wage. What is it? $7 or $8 now? I don't know what it is. $10, $50, whatever it is. Make your minimum wage, do your job, punch in, punch out. Don't think about anything else. Don't ask questions. Do what you're told. Pay your taxes and be a good little boy.
Yeah. And luckily, hopefully we have enough productive people to cover your ass since you're highly inefficient.
Yeah.
All right. Craig Knapp.
We're laughing. Hold on. I'm going back to this. We're laughing because not because it's funny, but because it's pathetic. At least that's why I'm laughing. I don't know about you, but it's pathetic.
Yeah.
It's a joke.
Yeah.
That's why organizations like what we're doing are so important. It's critical.
Well, and I shouldn't, I'm not mentioning names, but I had a guy come to me, it was about a year ago, and he says, hey, so do we do compensation increases for tenure, like for how long we've been here? I'm like,
sell more because you've been here longer.
No, I'm like, no, not at all. Like, just because you've been here doesn't mean like you provide. Like, you could be here 5 years and you're less productive than you were when you started. If anything, we should actually be talking about decreasing your salary. It's like, it's really simple, guys.
You got guys listening in to our conversation now?
I don't know. Yeah, maybe.
Yeah. No, more people need to hear it for sure. No, that's true. It's like, for tenure, what are you talking about? You've been here for 10 years, let's say. Okay, well, yeah, you should naturally be making more because hopefully what the hell you're doing.
Yeah.
So you're more productive.
More value than you did before, or in a different capacity maybe, or something. But like, yeah, I don't know.
Just for sticking around. Yeah. No, you're actually more expensive to the company. That's why people get fired and get replaced with younger people, because younger people are cheaper than older people. And if all you're doing if you're doing the same level of work that a 20-year-old kid can do, shame on you. Not shame on the employer. The employer is being smart. He's allocating his resources effectively by hiring somebody who's half the cost of you. So if you want to stick around, take a page from, I think it's Seth Godin wrote Linchpin, Making Yourself Indispensable. You better damn well make yourself indispensable, because there's a young workforce coming behind you that can do it better, faster, smarter, more intelligently, and for half the cost.
Yeah. And what's interesting is that whole loyalty conversation, it's always one way.
Always.
Right? It's, well, I've been loyal to this company. Well, yeah, but the company's been loyal to you. We've kept you employed for 5 years.
And have you really been loyal to the company? What if I can't, let's take you as an example. If you came to me and said, hey, Ryan, you know, like this other job, they're going to pay me twice as much. But I'm loyal. I'll stick around. Yeah, right. There's no loyalty there. What you would say is you'd say, hey, I'll stick around if you match that offer.
Yeah. Is that loyalty?
That's not loyalty.
Yeah.
No.
That's an agreement, right?
That's all it is. It's an agreement between two mutually consenting adult parties. That's why I'm not a fan of minimum wage.
Now, with that said, I do have to say this. We sometimes invest in employees. We realize that there's times and seasons, right? If I have a stellar guy that's highly productive on the team and he's going through a dip or a crisis or whatever, do I immediately go, oh, you're not productive, shoot him to the curb? No. From a business perspective, there's an investment. Hey, it's an investment to keep him around. That's how valuable he is. Based upon how he was historically, it's an investment for immediate cost for him to come back around and keep him on the team. So
compared to hiring somebody new, right?
Exactly. So, but it's still part of your value bring, right? If you bring a huge amount of value in the past and you're in a slump or whatever, it's that value is a deposit in that account, which will allow you to have slumps sometimes.
Mm-hmm.
All right. Anything else on that question?
I'll probably bring it up when you start talking.
Okay. You ready? Okay. Craig Knapp. Gentlemen, how do you handle getting your course aligned after a couple of days or more of setbacks? An example, I'm trying to master my health by eating clean this past week. I have completely blown it. I know it. I don't feel good about it, but I would like advice on how to shore up that discipline.
Very simply, don't compound it. Everybody messes up. You're going to mess up. I'm going to mess up. Kipp, you're going to mess up. Even the people we think don't mess up. I can assure you. I promise you. What they don't do is they don't compound the problem. So the best way to overcome a setback and getting course corrected is to recognize it quickly. That's why the after action review is so critical. Recognize it quickly and adjust as quickly as you recognize it. So for example, if you missed your workout this morning, you're going to feel bad about that. You're going to feel guilty about that. And you know what? You should. Contrary to popular belief, you should feel like crap about that, because the idea is that that's going to drive you to make sure that you do it tomorrow. So let's say you miss out your workout today. You feel like crap. You wake up 2 hours later. You're like, man, I missed my workout. I'm going to feel bad about that. Okay, well, you recognized it. Step number 1. Step number 2, fix it as quickly as possible. That doesn't mean wait till tomorrow. Fix it now. Is there a small workout that you can do now? Can you skip lunch or just eat something in 5 minutes and then go to the gym for 30 minutes and do a workout? Can you run? Can you do some jumping jacks in your office? Like, what can you do to fix the situation as quickly as you recognize it? And those individuals that recognize faults or missteps or things they've messed up on, who learn to adjust them as soon as they recognize them, are always going to win. But if you compound it and you're like, well, I missed my workout, I guess I can just eat like a pig for the next 24 hours until tomorrow morning. We laugh at that, but that's what people do. Well, I missed my workout, so I guess I'll just do whatever I want because I already ruined it. So I guess I'll just do whatever I want for the next couple of days. And it's apparent in Craig's question where he says, "I'm trying to master my health by eating clean this past week." So you could tell that his compound window is a week. And so I blew the week. And you're like, well, no, really, you just blew a day. But the minute you probably blew the day, you went,
now my week is blown because I messed up one day. So then he throws the entire week out as well.
Well, and I like what you said, even to take it further, you said, well, he ruined the day. No, he didn't. He just messed up this morning.
The moment, really.
The moment.
Yeah.
Yeah. So Aubrey Marcus has this concept in his book, Own the Day, Own Your Life, where he talks about breaking it down and winning the battle at the smallest common denominator. So it's not about even winning the day necessarily, although that's kind of the title of the book. It's about winning the moment, like you said. So, okay, you gave into temptation, whether that's food or laziness or slothfulness or pornography or gluttony or drug abuse or whatever your thing is, right? You gave into the moment. Okay, shame on you, feel guilty, use the guilt, like we talk about using quote unquote negative emotions to fix it. Use the negative emotion. And I say negative in quotations because I don't think there's negative emotions. They're all just trying to tell us something. Like you wouldn't say the dashboard on your car that's telling you that your gas is out is a negative indicator. Like, oh, that's a bad thing. You'd say, oh no, that's telling me that I need to go get gas.
Yeah, let me cover that up. I don't need that negativity in my life.
And you don't assign judgment to it, right? Like shame on that thing for telling me that my gas is low. And you just go get gas, right? And that's what it is with guilt as well. It's like, oh, I feel guilty, but now I feel guilty for feeling guilty. No, you just recognize, oh, I feel guilty because I missed my workout. How do I fix that? Stop missing workouts.
Yeah.
So
and go work out right now.
Go work out right now. Don't wait till tomorrow. Just, hey, you know what? And you know what? It may have to be an inferior workout. I get that, right? Because if you have an hour set aside in the morning and then you got to get to work, I realize, we don't all have the flexibility that we'd like to have in our day necessarily. So just do what you can. Like Teddy Roosevelt says, do what you can with what you have where you are.
Yeah.
That's how you fix the problem as quickly as you recognize it.
Yeah, that's funny. I remember in the IC a few months, well, not a few months, man, it's been a long time, man, by the way. Maybe about a year ago, if you remember, we did a push-up challenge. Mm-hmm. You remember this? It was so many push-ups per day or whatever. Yeah. And the same scenario, I didn't do my push-ups earlier in the day. I get off work. It's 7 o'clock, 8 o'clock. My wife's like, let's go grab dinner. So we're at the restaurant. Oh, let's go to Cold Stone. And I'm thinking, I have 100 push-ups I got to do between now and midnight. And I'm at Cold Stone. And I thought, I better start now. So I start actually doing push-ups outside of Cold Stone. Now, people were probably like, what the crap? But the point is I didn't want to go to my team and go, I didn't do them.
Yep.
I had no excuse. I still had 4 hours in my day to do them. Yep. And so I missed the opportunity to do them earlier in the day, or I messed up or whatever. And I course corrected and thought, well, now's as good as any, and got on the floor and started doing some push-ups, and people thought it was funny, I guess.
Yeah. And if you're worried about what people thought more than you worried about keeping your commitments, then you wouldn't have done that and you would have been a loser.
Totally. Well, and I had a good play, right? People started laughing and like, hey, you need to be doing the push-ups, not me.
Get down here with me. Put the ice cream cone down, sir, and start doing some push-ups. Yeah, it's true. And what's interesting about this is one of the questions that we get asked all the time is developing confidence, right? This is the answer. The way that you develop confidence, let me back up. The way that you do not develop confidence is by compounding your slip-ups. The way that you develop confidence is by winning the battle with commitments to yourself.
Yeah. You
committed to doing something, so you do it. Even if it means at 11 o'clock at night, you're doing cold stone push-ups and everybody's looking at you weird, you are going to get up more confident than you did before. I guarantee you. I guarantee you. And if all you would have done is pig out on the ice cream thing and went to bed, there's that guilt indicator popping up because you didn't keep the commitment to yourself.
Yeah, which is what's the message you're sending to yourself about who you are as a man and your level of integrity?
Yes. And the other people who are relying upon you, your wife, right? My wife doesn't trust me. Yeah, why should she trust you? You can't win a small battle with push-ups. So why should she trust you when it comes to her livelihood? Oh, my kids, they don't have any level of respect and they run their mouths and they won't do what they're supposed to be doing. Well, yeah, they're modeling your behavior. Of course, that's what they're doing.
Yeah.
turn the mirror around, fix yourself. And then you start to fix other people through that process.
Love it. All right. Michael Connors, probably the most important question today is, what is your favorite flavor of milk?
I like the peanut butter milk.
Peanut butter milk.
Yeah, I like that. I mean, they're all good. The mint's good. The mint chocolate's good too. I would say the peanut butter milk is my favorite. It's my go-to.
For you guys that don't know, milk, we're talking about Jocko's. Milk is pretty much the protein drink provided by Origin Labs, partnered up with Jocko. Learn more at originusa.com. Is that the
Origin
URL?
Main? Origin Main. Actually, I think USA goes to, but originmain.com. And if you do, use the code ORDER, ORDER, because they're going to give you a discount on anything that you purchase over there.
Awesome. All right, Michael, I had a second question.
Okay.
Biggest lesson learned during the demo of the barn?
Hire somebody else to do it.
Don't do that again.
Yeah, don't do biggest lesson, that things are going to take longer and are going to be harder than you think they are when you start. So plan and be prepared for it. And that's not just demolitioning a barn. That's starting a business, developing a relationship, getting a promotion, improving your jiu-jitsu game, becoming a better hunter. It's going to take longer. It's going to be harder. It's going to cost you more money. Financial retirement is another one that I think about. So know that your expectations are set way too high. You're way too ambitious and you think too highly of your skills. So build in the contingency plans to make sure you do this right.
That's funny. Do you mind sharing one of the things that we did at the Origin Main event, you know, the analogy that you had about tearing out the wood out of the barn and making room? Because when I read this question, obviously the question's not geared towards me because I didn't demo the barn, but it was a great analogy that came out of that demolition.
Yeah.
And it was really impactful to me during the main event. And so maybe if you wouldn't mind.
Yeah, for sure. That was actually one of my most favorite moments from the entire weekend. But as I was tearing down the barn with my family, and they all helped. My son was on a 15-pound sledgehammer tearing out walls and breaking down studs, and my wife was sweeping and directing and helping organize the chaos and the madness, and then of course keeping me on track. And she was organizing and doing all that. My daughter was sweeping. Like everybody was involved. And as I was tearing all this wood out of there, and it was a lot of wood that we pulled out of there, from the walls to the boards and everything else that was in there, I started to think about why I was doing this. Like, why in the world was I taking all this time and effort and attention and tearing this barn down? And I realized, well, I've got to make room for the 75 guys who were coming to the event. And as I started thinking about this, because I'm a little sick and twisted this way, I started thinking about the analogy of how that applies to life. Right? We have all of these wonderful things that we want to incorporate into our lives. We want to have romance, and we want to build wealth, and we want to start businesses that impact other people. We want to pursue meaningful hobbies, and we want to start working out. We want to start reading and journaling and all the things that we've talked about for years. And at the same time, we don't ever clear out any space or margin or room for these new activities, endeavors, and mental thoughts. Well, you have to clear the space. Just as much as I want to squeeze 75 guys into our barn, if I don't clear all that rubble and that junk out of there, I'm not making any room for those guys to come in and share in the experience. So the analogy to me was, in life, think about what you have to get rid of in your life in order to make way for the new. Maybe it's some old beliefs. Maybe it's some animosity and resentment towards individuals. Maybe it's some extra weight around the midsection that you have to let go of. Maybe it's a habit that you've clung on to for so long, whether it's tobacco use or drugs or pornography or laziness or procrastination or whatever. What do you have to clear out in order to make way for the new? And so what we did at the event itself is I actually took the wood that I pulled out of there and I cut it up into, I think they were 2x6s. I cut them into like 6 or 7 inch pieces. So they were just chunks of wood. And I had all the guys take time with a Sharpie marker and write down what they needed to get rid of in their life. And so they took, 15 or 20 minutes doing that. And then during the bonfire that evening, I had each of the gentlemen there share with us as members of the event what they were going to get rid of in their life, and then literally burn it by throwing that piece of wood with the written statement in the fire itself. It's a very, very powerful moment. I think 98% of the attendees were vocal and actually said what they are going to get rid of. There was a few who chose not to, and that's fine. It's their experience. But they did write things down. Everybody wrote things down, and it was a very powerful moment to see what guys needed to let go of in order to make way for the new. It's a very cool experience.
Yeah, it was awesome. It was a great, great night.
Yeah.
One thought that came up for me this past Sunday, actually, I was teaching gospel doctrine. Did you know I teach gospel doctrine?
I think you mentioned that before.
Okay.
I wouldn't go to your class if I knew it was you.
It was good stuff. It was good stuff this past Sunday.
I'm sure it was.
Yeah.
It was the other person's turn to teach.
Yeah, it was great. I was sat and watched. But one of the things that came up is the power or the effect of forgiveness. And it was around this same concept. And just to be really clear to the guys that are listening, this isn't hypothetical, like, oh, you got to remove things from your life to make room for the new. No, that's what needs to happen. Like, this is like almost factual for me, right? Like, I feel very passionate about this. If you are holding on to hate and grudges and remorse and whatever, you can't, like, it doesn't work that way. Like in the space of spirituality, right? You're not going to have the Spirit of Christ in you if you're focused on contention, hatred, and unforgiveness. It doesn't work that way. And even last week we talked about this a little bit on how much what we ponder on and what we think about and what we're around affects our mentality. That's part of what this is. And if we are unwilling to forgive people, we're not going to have room in our hearts to love them. And it's really that simple. And I think that transcends to just so many different areas of life. And sometimes I think we have a tendency to look at this from the perspective of kind of like a wish-washy, like, oh, it's a feel-good idea. No, I think it's actually a requirement that you need to move those things out of your life to have a new.
Yeah, I mean, definitely. We know there's studies that show that, for example, willpower is fleeting. So if you spend all of your time, attention, focus, energy, and willpower on things that are unimportant or toxic or negative or destructive to your own well-being, okay, well, you consumed it on those things. You have literally no more to give to more positive, encouraging, uplifting behaviors and thoughts and ideas. So burn it down so that you can make way for something that you know is going to be, I mean, this goes back to the first question we let off with, which is, how do you be more positive? What do you need to burn down in your life in order to create ways and paths for the positivity to come into your life, if you will?
Yeah. All right. Jesse Burchett, how can you convince another man that he is and should still man up to be a father when you are in a relationship with his ex and the child's mother without conflict? Just because they are separated and he does not have full custody of the child does not make him any less of a man, but hearing it from an enemy is not working out.
Well, I would say first, why do you feel the need to do that? Is it your place to do it? And I'm assuming I'm getting this right, that this guy is with
his ex-wife.
Are there kids? Did he say anything about kids in the picture?
Yeah, he does. With his ex-wife and child's mother. Yeah. So he's
confused.
so he's probably in a relationship with a woman, and
I get it.
He's wanting to tell the ex-husband that he needs to man up. And still, even though he doesn't have full custody, he needs to be there for his kids, right? And level up.
No, I don't think that's your place. I mean, what are you going to say to the guy? Like I mean, it's apparent that he doesn't want to do that. And coming from you, the asshole that married his wife and has his kids, and I'm just saying, like, from his perspective. I'm not saying you are. I'm saying it from his perspective. Yeah. It's likely that that's how he views you. And you saying that is only going to make matters worse and create some animosity. Now, I have friends, and I won't say anything. I have friends who used to feel this way about men who married their ex-wife and now is the stepfather to their children, who have gotten over that. But they've had to go on their own path and their own journey and process of self-discovery. There's no new husband that's going to create that catalyst for change. I just don't see that happening. So be an example to her, be an example to this guy, be an example to little Timmy or Tommy or Sally or whoever it is, and live your life, impact those you can impact, let the chips fall where they may. I just don't know if it's your place, your job, or even effective to try to convince this guy to quote unquote man up.
Yeah, no way. I can relate to that. The first boyfriend that was around my kids after my divorce, by default, every dude that stepped in that house was a complete ass.
Of course, even though it's likely that they weren't. Right.
Yeah. When you have that threat of fulfilling someone filling your role as father around your children, it is a very hard thing to look beyond.
Yeah. I just think we've had these sorts of questions come up over the past, it seems like 2 or 3 weeks. Guys, your job is not to convince people.
Yeah, you can't change people.
You're not going to change people. I would say be a great example when it's appropriate and situations get brought up where you might be able to share a story of your own. Not point fingers. Kipp, you should blah, 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 blah. Yeah. No, hey, you know what, Kipp? I noticed something. And I remember when I was really struggling in my life, it was hard for me. And I did these couple of things. And man, it seemed to really help. So take that for what it's worth.
Yeah. And that's the power of sharing.
Right.
Is if you share a story that how it impacted you, Ryan, I can't even argue with that.
Nothing to argue with.
That worked for him. And then it's on the table for me to look at and go, I wonder how that might relate to me. And then I can decide if that is something that I want to hold on to. That is the power of sharing. And by the way, that's only made possible by if Ryan shares.
Right.
So one, you have to be willing to share. And then second, you're just presenting possibility for other individuals. And let's be hypothetical. Right. And I think this might show up in marriages, to be honest, right? Where you might have a spouse that says, hey, you need to man up. Not you, Ryan, of course, not you.
No.
Never.
But
other guys, lesser men.
Yes.
Might have their spouse to say, well, you need to man up or whatever. What's the impact of me changing my behavior because I got harassed by my spouse versus me seeing someone do something the way they do it and me making the decision of, hey, you know what? I should probably do that. Mm-hmm. Those are two drastic scenarios. One is fleeting. It'll be a temporary stopgap just to get someone off my back. And I felt negative about it for a temporary period of time. The other one has a level of transformation or inspiration out of it, where it's like, it was my idea. Man, maybe I should do that. And I own it in a way different way than just someone telling me I should man up.
Right. Yeah. I think this also comes into play when we're talking about imposter syndrome. I was listening to a podcast a couple of days ago, and I think it was Rogan. He was asking his guest, I don't know. Anyways, the point's the same. He was asking his guest about if he ever feels like an imposter. And I've never dealt with that. But guys have asked me that. Do you ever feel like an imposter? I'm like, no, I've never felt like an imposter.
Like in what way?
Because I'm suggesting to men that they do these things to be more manly, right? And so they would say things like, well, who makes you the expert and why are you the authority?
Yeah, like you're faking some expertise to be where you're at.
And look, I don't feel like I'm an imposter. I've never dealt with that. And here's why. Because I don't really talk a whole lot about what guys should and shouldn't do. I should simply share what's worked for me. That's not me posing. That's not me making up something different about who I am. That's not even positioning myself as an expert or some sort of guru. It's simply, here's what's worked for me. Here's what I believe. I do at points take some moral authority. But if you choose differently, okay, that's fine. Like, I'm not here to convince you. I'm not here to sell you. I believe that we're on a very powerful and important mission to reclaim and restore masculinity as defined by me. I'm not so arrogant to believe that other people don't have some sort of credible thoughts that might be different than mine with regards to masculinity. But this is as defined by me, seeing as how it's a movement that I created. And I'm not going to convince you. There's no like, I should do this and you should do that. Do whatever you want. But here's what's worked for me.
Yeah.
Here's what I think would work for you.
It's really the beard providing inspiration at most times.
All it is, man. It's its own entity. It's its higher power just doing its thing.
Do you ever watch the fake martial arts videos from Rogan?
Yes. There's that. And then like McDojo, I think is another one. Is it like on Instagram?
Well, did you watch you watch Master Ken, right?
Yeah, of course. But that's not what you're talking about, right? You're talking about like the guys, like
guys that like are
Tai Chi or whatever stuff.
Yeah,
and
they're claiming to be real.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
Last night I totally got in a kick and started watching all these like,
you know what's the weirdest thing about that to me is,
buddy,
you're always going to find one asshole who thinks that he's special, right? You're always going to find that. But that's not even the issue with me. I see those videos. I'm like, there's always a charlatan. Always. We're never at a loss for that. What's surprising to me is that those people that are with him are faking getting hurt, are faking being knocked down. I'm like, it's not even so much the quote unquote master. It's the followers who are like going along with it. Are they brainwashed? Do they really believe that they're being impacted? Like, I don't understand. Is it just an innate desire to fit in and be accepted? I have no idea. I cannot fathom how I don't know. I don't even know how to put it into words. It's so easy to me.
I totally agree. That's the part that blows my mind. Like, I get that there's some crazies, right? But I'm like, well, why are all those students there? Yes. Are they paying money? Like, yes. That's the part that blows. It makes me feel uncomfortable when I watch the video, just thinking, oh man, I don't know. There's
some that I see, like I see some of these guys with, I don't know, knife attacks, for example. And I think to myself, okay, well, somebody who didn't know could see that as being credible. I could see that.
Yeah.
And there's some that are like, he just stares at him, an evil look, and the guys get blown back. I'm like, okay, come on. Like, obviously, we know. Yeah. Have you ever seen the videos where you have one of these Tai Chi guys and then you have a real martial artist, like they challenge, and the Tai Chi guys, and the real martial artist just kicks his trash. Have you ever seen those videos?
Destroys him. Yeah.
So funny. So funny.
So gnarly, man. Yeah. But you're right. It's the followers that blow my mind. That's the part that's really uncomfortable.
You know what? There's a good lesson to be learned there, in that we are so suggestible as human beings. We have such a desire to fit in and belong and be part of something that we will do some of the weirdest, most asinine things that a human being can think of, even just subconsciously, to fit in. Be very, very aware of that, because no man is immune to it. We laugh at it, but we're not immune to it. It's the same thing. Why one perfect example is the Holocaust. I mean, I don't believe for a minute that the millions of German soldiers were all evil human beings that just were hell-bent on destroying the earth.
Yeah.
I believe that if I was born in that time, that I could have, in Germany, that I very easily could have been one of those soldiers. Very easily. And if you think anything but that, I believe you're a bit delusional.
Yeah, I think you're not being open-minded enough.
You're just not being aware of human nature. And what the point I'm making is that we need to remain vigilant against this sort of thing and be willing to stand up, make ourselves sovereign individuals so we don't subject ourselves to these types of ploys and plots, whether they're harmless, like buying into the Tai Chi thing, or something completely destructive and damaging, like something as horrific as the Holocaust and these other atrocious activities.
Would you say that the root of that belonging is really purpose?
No, I think it's more primal than that. I just think it's survival.
Yeah.
I mean, I'm not saying that purpose doesn't tie into it, because we all want to feel like we're part of something and that our life has meaning.
Yeah.
But I think even more foundational than that, we just need to be part of the tribe so we don't die.
Yeah. I'm sure there's so many people that decided, like, if like Nazis as an example, where they felt they had to, for the sake.
And in many cases, maybe they did, right? Maybe they did. Maybe they were coerced, or, that was the only option they felt was available. And if you're looking at that or choosing to death yourself, well, okay, that starts to look somewhat attractive.
Yeah. That's gnarly, man.
Yeah.
All right. Zach Williams.
Oh, this is also why, Kipp, one more thing.
Oh, yeah.
This is also why we, as moral men of conviction and principle and virtue, ought to stand up against these atrocities as well.
Yeah.
Because there's situations where people can't avoid, and it's our job to do that.
Yeah. Well, last week, I think it was last week, you mentioned on the podcast about imagine I can't remember the example that you gave, but imagine that your stance on a political issue that is controversial. Mm-hmm. And if your conviction would be different if everyone knew versus if no one knew.
Yeah.
And when you use that example last week, what I thought was really powerful is how many people probably agree with you, but because you're not taking a stance and actually communicating your convictions, they don't either.
Oh yeah. I mean, this is, and I think there is a push to silence those who have something to share. And I'm not going to say truth necessarily, because I don't get into like the my truth thing. That's perception, but your perception is important and your viewpoint is important. For example, there was a Facebook post today from the town that I moved from, where they had put gay pride banners all over the town. The city had sanctioned this, and they had put gay pride banners all over the town. And there was a debate, and the mayor said, this is what they're doing. And there was a debate about it. And I said, this is not a great precedent that we're setting here, and has nothing to do with LGBTQ rights or whatever. It doesn't. And two things can exist simultaneously. An individual can have a healthy level of respect and understanding for an individual, and also not necessarily agree with or support their positions. Those two things can exist simultaneously. But when you support one group, you start to isolate one group, whether it's the gay community or a straight community or a black community or a white community. When you start to isolate one group, the problem, the precedent that you're setting is that you're saying it's okay that we support this one group. So what happens when white straight men pride wants to come into town? Would you do the same thing in the name of tolerance and acceptance? What happens when, Satan worshipers of America says, well, we just want to be accepted, so why wouldn't you put these banners all over town? You have to make a stand for what you believe in, and it's not always comfortable and it's not always easy, but you've got to have some moral principle and integrity and stand up for these things, and realize that it's not your obligation to agree with or to even support opposing viewpoints. Should you strive to understand them? Sure. But you're not obligated to agree with them or even accept it.
Yeah, totally. All right. Zach Williams has a question on parenting older children. 19-year-old, huge decision made that's putting them in prison. Any guidance on pushing past the anger and embarrassment and being the father figure still needed, but still holding their feet to the fire as consequences of their actions?
Well, at 19 years old, I'm not sure how much fire you can hold to their feet. Like, they're adults, right? So the way that you hold their feet to the fire is you don't enable them. You make them live with the consequences of their choices. Man, that's so hard. I used to think,
and at 19, by the way,
right,
they're getting the full brunt of their consequences, whether you give it to them or not. Right?
Yeah. I used to be so naive when I would say things like, well, just kick them out of the house. It's easy. And now that I have kids, I'm thinking to myself, damn, if one of my kids was hooked on drugs, for example, it's so easy to say, just kick him out and then he'll have to live on his own, or she'll have to live on her own. And yet when you think about it being one of your own children, it's like, ugh, that's not an easy thing to do. There is one little red flag I heard in here, and it's how do you overcome the anger and the embarrassment?
Yeah.
I would caution against that, because that's an ego-driven, that's an egocentric belief and thought. And I'm not saying I'd be above that, but it is centered and originates from ego, from pride, from wounded pride.
Yeah.
And the problem with that is that you let it cloud your course of action, which, in all fairness, he did say, how do you still be the father he needs to be? He did say that too.
Yeah.
You might be letting your ego and that wounded pride cloud the attention and the focus where it should be, which is, how do I let my son experience the full weight of his consequences? How do I inspire? How do I be a shining example? How do I encourage? How do I educate? How do I foster these different choices? And I think if you really spent more time focused on that than being angry because you're embarrassed, and look, I'm not saying that's without cause. Potentially it is, depending on the situation. But the focus, I think, should be more on how do I heal my son versus how do I fix my own reputation.
Yeah. I think this transcends to young kids. Of course, when we have younger children that are doing certain things, it reflects on us as parents. We think that those around us, our neighborhood or whatever, might look at us in a negative light or think we're bad parents or whatever. And to your point, Ryan, when that's the focal point, your kid knows that, by the way. They know you're mad because of you, because it makes you're choosing to be angry because of what they did, and that your concern is how you look, not about how they feel, not about the circumstance or anything else. So your kid knows it. And to your point, Ryan, that should not be the driving factor of how I address issues with my son, because I'm embarrassed because he made me look bad in front of the neighbors. That's the last thing that you should be worried about. What you should be worried about is ensuring that your kid knows that he's loved regardless of his actions, and that you're willing to help in a way that, maybe it's even tough love. That's fine too.
Right. Help doesn't necessarily bring them back into the house or give them money. Like we have to define that.
But it's important, I think, regardless of the circumstances and boundaries that you set, that they know that they're loved. And unfortunately, anger and embarrassment is almost the opposite of what gets reflected as love. They're not going to see it as that.
No way.
They're going to see it as something drastically different.
And it isn't selfless. It's selfish. Again, I'm not saying that I would be above that. I certainly would. Here's the other thing is people are judging you anyways.
Yeah.
Like even if the kid's perfect child, people are like, oh my gosh, you see this guy, how he parents his kids? Like people are going to judge you no matter what. So whether you do it right, wrong, or anywhere in between on the spectrum, people are going to judge you. So do what you know to be right. Have this level of love and empathy and focus and attention on your son, not so much maybe on yourself, and then act accordingly.
Yeah. One point that I'd like to bring up, Ryan, and maybe get your thoughts on this is, if Zach's question was kind of geared differently, and instead of a 19-year-old, it was a 17-year-old or a 16-year-old, this is really tough. At a 19, I think it starts becoming easier because they're a full-fledged adult. But I
think the answer becomes clearer, but I don't know that it would be easy.
Well, yeah, fair enough.
I see what you're saying.
It's more clear, but when they're younger, this is not as clear because they're almost adults. You're still responsible for them. They're in this space of maturity where they want some independence, and you need to be more hands-off. You're not going to grab Zach and bend him over your leg and spank him, right? Like not when he's 17. So that is a real struggle for me currently right now, in this balance of letting the chips fall as they may, but still, I don't know, finding that balance of how do I influence my children. And it's more from the perspective of their respect and providing suggestion than it is like hardened, you can't do these things, or I'm going to, because there becomes a point where you start pushing them away. And at these older years, these kids do have the capability of just leaving.
Mm-hmm.
Like that can happen, right? I could ruin my relationship with my 7-year-old based upon how I raise him and how we communicate. Like that is a feasible option, where that's definitely not going to happen with my 8-year-old.
Right.
And
I think
that's tough.
It's valid. It's valid. I think there's this strategy of detachment that we may want to visit, right? Because you do in a way have to detach yourself from the situation. You're attached, which is why you're hurt, why your pride and your ego is wounded, is damaged, because you're attached to the situation, and rightfully so. So how can you detach yourself from the situation? And then you start thinking of courses of action. A detached response would be something like, what can I do? Or what does my son need? Think about that for a second. What is the course of action that my son needs from me? That's a detached response, as opposed to, I just want him to love me and I want to love him. That's attached. You need to detach. What does he need from me? And he might need a kick out of the nest. I'm not saying he does. I'm just saying, based on the situation, maybe he does. He might need to flounder a little bit. He might need, I don't know. He might need, again, I don't know what the situation is, but he might need some counseling. He might need some therapy. Detach yourself and ask, what does he need that is going to serve him well? Not what you want to give him so you can maintain your pride and your ego, or the love that he has for you, or his feelings towards you. What does he need? Detach yourself and then take your course of action.
I love that. I like that. Jocko doesn't he have a principle in extreme ownership kind of around?
That's what it is. Detachment. Yeah.
But is it detached? Like, what's the phrase that he uses?
I don't know. Somebody will be sure to correct us. So we'll figure that out. But, I don't know what it is, but yeah, detachment, that is a principle for sure.
Yeah. I like it. How are we doing on time?
Actually got to get going. We got to wrap things up.
Okay. All right. Let's wrap up.
All right. Bring us home then.
We mentioned this. Yeah. We already mentioned this at the beginning of the podcast. Stop sending me personal messages unless you're going to Venmo me some money. Otherwise your questions have to be submitted through Facebook. Maybe someone would. Maybe I should. I was joking. I'll clarify just in case. So to submit your questions,
one of two ways. To send us money to get our.
You don't think so? Someone's going to be.
Stranger things have happened.
Yeah, someone's going to be smart. I can just Venmo me $1.
Or a penny. A penny. Yeah. Here's 5 cents, Kipp. What's this worth? How much of your time is this worth?
Yeah. How much of a question can you get me for 5 cents?
You get three words for that. 3 words.
Yeah. 3 words. I'll be like, so Ryan. Facebook is where you submit your questions, guys. So facebook.com/group/order of man. And then our other way that we field questions is really from the Iron Council. To learn more about that exclusive brotherhood and rub shoulders with like-minded men. There's a question in here that I was really excited about getting to. Hopefully we get to it next week. But it was really around, what is the difference between having a group of men that hold you accountable versus being a member of the IC? And I think that would be a fun thing for us to kind of dive into. So guys that feel like, hey, I am around like-minded men, right? I'm surrounding myself around guys that hold me accountable. What more would I be able to get out of the IC? Yeah. And so maybe we address that next week, and it would be a great discussion. But to learn more about the Iron Council, you can go to orderofman.com/Iron Council. Of course, subscribe to the podcast. Follow Mr. Mickler on Twitter or Instagram @Ryan Mickler, and visit the store.orderofman.com for any type of swag, hats, shirts, decals, flags. I need to get a flag. And then we have some new shirts.
Yeah, man.
Yeah.
You should have been wearing it today. Shirts. I'm a little disappointed.
Well, you didn't tell me we were going on video, man. Maybe I'll wear it next week.
I told you weeks ago we were doing more video. Don't blame that on me, man.
Okay, schedule-wise, we have 2 things. Tri Builder starts the
October 1st. Yep.
October. To learn more about the Tri Builder or to register, that's orderofman.com/Tri Builder. There's still some opening spots, so you need to act quickly and get on there and register. Where are we at, sir, on the main event? Do we have any openings?
Yeah, there might. I don't know. I would just say try to register and see what it says. I honestly don't know right offhand, but if we have a few more registrants, we'll squeeze you in, I'm sure.
It's low. How's that, guys?
Yeah, it's very low, if not full.
Yeah, that event is May 29th through May 31st, 2020, with an Iron Council dinner on the 28th.
Mm-hmm.
Learn more about that event. I think one of two ways. First, to register, go to orderofman.com/main event to kind of see a highlight reel, I guess, of what the event would somewhat be like. Jump to our YouTube channel, watch the video that was raised. The world is starving for men. Is that
that one's actually on the @orderman.com/main event too. You can watch the YouTube video right there as well.
Oh, perfect.
Yep.
Yeah. So watch that video. I think that video is like a perfect synopsis of what you might get into.
Except for it doesn't have Kipp or Joshua on there.
I'm on there. I'm doing jiu-jitsu.
That's true. That is true. All right. Did we get it?
Yep. Yes, sir.
All right, guys. Want to let you know I appreciate you. Great questions today. I don't feel like we got through a whole lot, but we really dive deep into some of those questions. So I thought that was really good. We'll keep going. You keep asking your questions, and we'll be back on Friday for Friday Field Notes. But until then, take action. Become the man you are meant to be.